I am the founder and CEO of Sun Exchange, and thank you very much for coming along this evening. I know it's stuffy in here, but the air conditioning units are chugging away there. If only there were solar panels on the roof of this building to make it so that it was solar powered air conditioning. Thank you. Just a bit of my background. My academic background is in climate change science. I'm actually a climate change scientist. Back in 2007, I graduated with a master's degree in the science of climate change because I understood that the only thing that can really change our pathway to this, literally the human race is going to drop off a cliff if we don't change the trajectory of how we make our energy. You can dispute it all you want, but the numbers speak for themselves. Solar power is the easiest way to change the way we can produce energy worldwide, and it is now the cheapest form of energy. I'll get to more of that in a moment. But my first ever business was a solar installation company. I set up a solar installation company in Cornwall in the United Kingdom in 2008. At the height of the recession, I decided to start a business installing solar panels in a country with no sun. So in 2000, but it did work. We got it off the ground. We've had 3 installation teams covering the whole of the south of the UK, solar powering schools, police stations, theatres, whole communities, people's households. Then when the subsidy programs were removed from the UK, I looked out the window, thought, where is the sun in the world that doesn't have solar panels? And I moved here to South Africa. And within a few months, I figured out that the reason why there are no solar panels in this country is lack of access to capital for businesses and schools and communities to go solar. There's no subsidy programs exist, debt is expensive. So you've got to come up with a new model that connects individuals around the world that want to participate in the solar electrification of the planet, but also have a financial mechanism in it to make sure that it's sustainable. I mean, solar panels are amazing. I love solar panels. The solar industry for me is like the best industry that exists on Earth right now. And owning a solar panel is awesome because the electricity it produces is worth between a 10 and 15% rate of return. But you've got to own the solar panels to get that return because the owner of the solar panel gets that income, it's theirs. So businesses and communities around that don't have that capital to go solar, unfortunately have this benefit, this financial benefit inaccessible to them. And likewise, individuals around the world that don't own a roof or live in a property they don't own, they're unable to own solar panels. So this revenue source is unavailable to them under traditional means. And what is also amazing about solar is that solar power is now the cheapest form of energy on Earth. So even in a country like South Africa, where you're abundant in coal has to be produced in such a way that it's from a finite resource, so the cost of coal increases over time. And we know that it's devastating to the climate and the health of people who work in the coal mines. Just today, 6 people died in a gas explosion in an abandoned mine, and people who are living around coal power stations suffer respiratory diseases. I've yet to hear of a single death from a solar power plant being built in this country. And we've now reached that tipping point, which is actually, if you think about it, quite a monumental breakthrough as a civilization, that we can now produce electricity directly from the sun cheaper than through burning fossil fuels. That is an absolute breakthrough, and we're at last stepping into the 21st century. So Sun Exchange is a marketplace that connects individuals around the world who want to own a solar panel, and they are leasing it to somebody else somewhere else on Earth. It goes through the Sun Exchange. The people who are using the solar panels at the other end are paying for using those solar panels. They're paying per unit of electricity. The Sun Exchange collects that payment for using the solar panels and distributes it back to the owner of the solar panels. We're just a marketplace. We connect users of solar to installers of solar to owners of solar. And this is how the vision is. So we have people all around the world that own solar panels anywhere else in the world. It's all connected by one blockchain-based financial system. People may think they understand what Bitcoin is, but most people actually don't. Bitcoin is not a currency. It's not a speculative instrument. It's neither of those things. It is a payment network. It's a payment network with units of data that transfer between themselves. It's allowing you to transfer value from one person to another in a pace of 10 minutes. Some people choose to hold those Bitcoins because they may increase in value, but that's not the point. That's someone doing speculation. The point in Bitcoin is a totally transnational, universal payment system that's permissionless and frictionless. And that's how we're utilizing it, and that's why it exists. And it's not going anywhere. Okay, so the people who are using solar panels are, let's just take the continent of Africa. There's 650 million people in this continent now without access to electricity at all, let alone sporadic electricity supplies. like Eskom, for example. So, and the population of Africa is increasing at such a rate, there's going to be 3 billion people in this continent by the end of this century. So electrifying this continent with a clean source is really the only pathway to sustainable development. And then we go to the people, let's just look at the solar radiation map as well. So this is a map of the world's sun. And obviously the red areas are places of the planet that receive more sun, places in the blue and the green receive less. So I'm from the UK, which is lovely in blue and green. And we're getting about 900 kilowatts per year from a solar panel. You move down to the Northern Cape, you're looking at like nearly 1,900, 2,000 kilowatt hours. So you get more than double the electricity out of a solar panel located here in South Africa than in the UK. So why would someone in the UK now choose to own a solar panel in Britain when you can own one here in South Africa, powering businesses and schools and factories? So there we are. Then there's the buyers. So people even living in Dubai, they have money, they want to own a solar panel. They can't because they live in high-rise buildings. They can't. There's no roof to put solar panels on, so they need to put a solar panel somewhere. Goes back to the first slide. If you own a solar panel, you get income. And most people on the IEA, the International Energy Agency, recently surveyed the G20 nations. The population said, what energy source do you want to be the dominant source of energy on the planet? And solar is number one. So there is that demand there. So here's just a demo of how it works. So someone visits thesunexchange.com, they sign up, we'll perform a KYC check, and they become a registered customer. They find a project where they want to own a solar panel in, they place an order of how many solar cells they want to own in the project, and then we give them an estimate of the income that solar panel will earn them. Once we've sold all the solar cells or the solar panels, they get installed by one of our installation companies. This project is fully insured and it's under a 20-year lease agreement with the energy consumer. Once it's installed, our customers check their dashboard and they can check their earnings, get live project data, see how much electricity they've produced, and they can sit back and earn monetized African sunshine to wherever they are in the world, streamed in cryptocurrency. So I'm just going to go to just show you that this actually exists, because this is my dashboard. So this is the Sun Exchange website where we've now got users all around the world. They come here and buy solar panels in projects here in this country. So for example, Sacred Heart College was the one we've just finished installing up in Johannesburg. If I go to my own personal dashboard, yes, you can see how old I am, but you can also see how much I've earned from my solar panels powering all of these projects. And we've got now 1,000 people earning solar revenue from solar projects that they've basically enabled to happen. So in terms of traction, I've started the business 2014, so we've now got 150,000 solar cells operating between our projects. We've got around 1,000 active users, but we've actually got 6,500, nearly 7,000 registered users on the platform waiting to buy into projects. We're now generating 240 megawatt hours of solar electricity per month. That's basically 240,000 kilowatt hours per month, which is basically 240,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide savings per month, 240 tons carbon reductions we're doing already on the platform. We've got pipelines now exceeding 150 megawatts of solar projects, and we've raised to date around $1.4 million in pre-seed capital to get the business to where it is today. So this was our first project. This was actually in Stellenbosch, just down the road from here, which is awesome to come back to square one. So this was the first project in the whole country that had a model such as this to enable it to go solar at no upfront cost. So just a little bit actually about the business model on that side. I've got some graphs later on. But obviously the point in solar is the electricity from solar panels is cheaper over the course of the lifespan of the project than the grid. So we can go into a school like the Stellenbosch Waldorf School. From day one, at no cost whatsoever to the school, we can provide them with a lease agreement that reduces their tariff from, say, R1.30 per kilowatt hour to around 90 cents per kilowatt hour. Just a stroke of a pen, they can now switch to a solar supply and reduce their energy costs. They don't have to lay down a cent. They just pay for the electricity they use for 20 years. So we've solar powered a tyre recycling factory in Rustenburg, an NGO, a climate change NGO in Salt River, a plastics recycling production factory in Blackheath, wildlife parks, a college in Johannesburg, and now we're doing microgrids in rural areas. So these are real solar projects, reducing the running costs of real operations owned by solar panels people all around the world. So we started this company in 2014. The first solar project went live in August 16. We have then created our own currency, which powers a rewards program, which I'll talk to in a moment. And then it's just a matter of just growing the technology behind the business, but we can go into that in more detail if you wish. So we do have our own rewards program. So if you fly SAA, you've got Voyage Air Miles. As you use the Sun Exchange, you accumulate SunX points. The more SunX points you've got, the cheaper the solar panels become to buy, and you also get priority access to projects, and you also get higher lease rates. So the more you use the platform, the more money you actually earn from the platform. So we do have existing investors. So our first investor was Boost VC. They're in California, and the head of that fund is a gentleman named Adam Draper, who's the son of Tim Draper, who basically backed Skype, Hotmail, and Tesla. And so he's the son of basically Silicon Valley royalty. He saw Sun Exchange, he wanted in, he saw what this was about, and we're using the technologies that he was very passionate about. Alphabit is a hedge fund based out of London. They've just put in $500,000 to get us to where we are now back in September. Network Society Ventures, they're an impact fund based out of New York. They were part of our pre-seed round that was also last September. Some of you may be familiar with Kalon Ventures, which is a 12J fund here in South Africa. They also came in with Network Society Ventures last year. So in terms of partners, we've got some pretty good industry relationships that we've formed. We actually went through the Techstars program, which is a very, very tough technology incubator, which is one of the best in the world, in fact, one of the top 2 globally we went through last year. Through that, we actually got partnered with Barclays. So obviously, ABSA Barclays have parted ways, but we actually partnered with Barclays to trial our financial innovation in some of through their customers. We've also partnered with the United Nations Development Programme to start trialling our projects in Eastern Europe. Decentral is a Section 12J renewable energy fund based here in Cape Town, or actually in Johannesburg, and they are obligated, or they have an option to put any sum up to 100% of the value of our projects from their fund. So if ever we host a solar project on our platform, they can come in and top up the rest of any unsold solar panels, which they've already exercised that right. We've partnered with the Energy Web Foundation, which is part of the Rocky Mountain Institute, and we're working them to work on setting the standards for how all this technology should be laid out globally. Like, we are working with brand new technology, like cryptocurrency is a new thing. We've put it to work in a real world scenario. And this is basically, we're leading the way really on how to utilize and what standards to set so that other organizations can work between themselves with zero friction. All Power Systems is the EPC that the Dim Sum Group work with. So they have built megawatts of pipeline throughout the country, and they're one of our installation companies. We're actually now working with 5 major installation companies in this country, in which All Power Systems we're now delighted to be working with. So just in terms of the team, you've probably seen some of these faces, not all of them are in the room. So I'm the CEO, and Saul Wainwright is our CFO, who's sat somewhere. There he is in the hand. Lisa Lynn, at the back there, she's also a managing director in operations. Nearly 30 years of experience working in technology, absolutely incredible powerhouse of women managing and developing and operating software company teams. Anthony Stonefield, head of venture development, seasoned technology entrepreneur, made several exits and working in telecoms, and he's bringing that experience to scaling this business as well. John Wallace, our head of commercial operations, ex-chief sales officer of Accenture. So you can see we've really got high caliber individuals in this business to make this scale to where this company should and can be. And Lawrence Kutzer as our CTO, who's up in Joburg. Obviously, this is a technology business. Our software stack is actually called Proxima. We've built it from the ground up specifically to enable this global universal micro leasing of solar panels. So we do have a tech team, full-time, working in Joburg, making this technology sing and making it do more wonderful things. So you probably heard, for example, Dimitri mentioning that we can use this platform for other areas. So we're going to transition this platform to not just solar, but wind, biomass, hydro, and also agriculture further down the line. We do have a large user base, and also the whole point in this company is user numbers driven. So we're essentially going to we are a marketing company. We market solar projects to our global user base. So we do have quite extensive community management and marketing skills in the company. We also have a quite broad set of advisors. So Max Kaiser, any who's involved or is familiar with cryptocurrency will know him. He's an ex-Wall Street banker who realized that the future of money was cryptocurrency, and he's been promoting the use of it ever since. David Orban is on our board. Richard Titus is he wrote the book or directed the film Who Killed the Electric Car. So he's very connected in Los Angeles in the media and the kind of people we want to speak to get our name out there. Danny Kennedy is the head of the California Clean Energy Fund, bringing incredible experience of how to lobby and put pressure on regulatory groups to get solar to become more promoted from a government side. And Gavin Marshall, anyone who has used, is it WeChat, Lisa? The Mixit. He was the developer of Mixit, which is probably one of the most well-known software platforms in Africa. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. So obviously this is solar projects, they cost money. How much does a solar project cost? Well, per megawatt of installation, you're looking at around $941,000 per megawatt. Just under $1 million a megawatt of solar project installed. So what actually makes up that cost? Only $677,000 of that is the cost of the solar implementation. The other costs that are involved is you've got VAT, which works up about $103,000, and then the Sun Exchange put on a margin on top of that before we sell it to our customers. So we make money up front by selling the solar projects to our customers. So the 941 with a 10% markup, which is our standard, we would make $94,000 up front before the system has even been installed. There's a cost of sale involved, which is around $10,000, but that's factored in, and we add that also into the amount of money we raise when we sell a project. That's the cost of marketing the project to our customers. Then, of course, there's a 2-month delay between the time the project is fundraised and gets installed. So we also raise a buffer to enable any rental payments to be paid before there's a delay, if there's any delays in the first payment from the customers, from the end user. So it just creates a rental buffer, basically, an overdraft facility, if you like. Once the electricity is being produced, that's being sold to the end consumer. And it's being sold at a rate that's guaranteed to be lower than buying electricity from the grid. So every unit of electricity that's sold to the customer, we take that unit that's collected from the user of electricity, and we take off an amount for insuring the solar plant, which equates to about 1.4% of the value of that unit of electricity. We take off a 10% sum which goes into a maintenance reserve to make sure that the solar project can be maintained for its full 20-year lease. We then take off a 10% or even sometimes 15% servicing fee to cover our cost of administering the project. And then the remainder of it goes to the owners of the solar panels. So approximately 81% of the value of the unit of electricity that's sold to the end consumer is paid back to the owner of the solar panel, wherever they are in the world. So let's put this in context to our actual business model. So obviously we started operating in 2016, and where we are today, our operating costs are currently exceeding the revenue we're creating from selling solar projects. But as you'll see in the next slide, our operating costs are going up in a linear fashion, but the rate in which we're installing solar panels is going up exponentially. So in year 1 we did 15 kilowatts, year 2 137, year 3 745 kilowatts. This year we're on target to install 2.9 megawatts of solar panels. What that means when you project forward, there's with a linear growth in our operating costs, because it doesn't cost us that much more money to run more solar crowd sales because the software is doing that. So after a point, the revenue we're creating from selling solar panels plus the income we're getting from the servicing fees equates to an exponential growth on income. So right now, the amount of money we make from upfront fees from selling the project is the bulk of our income, with a small amount coming from the servicing fees. But because the servicing fees are 20-year annuity income streams that accumulate, by the end of 2020, we're making more from servicing fees than we are from selling the projects up front. You plot forward a few years and the bulk of our revenue is coming from servicing fees. But obviously we're putting all of that revenue back into growing the business and growing our user base so we can sell more solar panels to the world. Just going to go back to this one. So this is an actual case study. So Nairo Plastics has just gone live. It's our biggest solar project to date. It's 450 kilowatts, like nearly half a megawatt of solar panels. So it's 100,440 solar cells. The purchase price per cell was $4.19. Now each solar cell is producing about 130 kilowatt hours over the lifespan of that project, which means that the actual gross revenue from that solar cell that cost $4.19 is going to earn the owner, after the fees that I just showed you, $14.56 over 20 years. Now that equates to around a 14% IRR. Obviously, the higher returns are later on in the lease because it's being escalated at 7%. But in the first few years, the owner of that solar cell could only be about an 8 or 9% return. Which, if you compare that to someone who's got money in a bank earning 6%, you can see why this is a much more attractive way of storing value and earning from than earning compound interest in a bank account. So that's effectively how we make money. That's how the business model works, and our projected capacity. So 2019, we're doing 2.6 megawatts, and with the revenue that we put back into growing the user base, which is growing organically anyway, our targets are 7.8 megawatts in 2020 and up to 60 megawatts accumulated capacity by 2022. And these are perfectly achievable. In the UK, there's a company doing solar leasing on residential scale, so lots of smaller projects. They're doing around 300 megawatts a year. So this is perfectly realistic and achievable. It's not overly ambitious, it's actually conservative. In terms of the actual company structure, now the company was started, actually founded in the USA, in California, but the holding company is actually based in Delaware. But it wholly owns the operations of the business, which is all done out of here in South Africa, through PTY Limited, which is here. Now, all the solar projects are also ring-fenced special purpose vehicles. Each solar project is its own business, which we administer on behalf of the owners of the solar panels leasing to those SPVs. We also opening up another entity in Dubai to operate projects in the Middle East. And we also have another legal entity in Malta which owns the cryptocurrency which we created. So basically, we're selling shares in the Sun Exchange Incorporated. It's registered in Delaware, and there are currently allocated, we have already allocated just over 12 million shares. And our pre-money valuation of the company, based on the assets we have, the intellectual property, projected revenues, number of users we've got, the company is valued at $5.7 million. So we're selling shares in Sun Exchange Inc. at about 45 cents a share. So anyone who can invest in a US company can just buy shares directly in the Inc. If you are unable to, because you're a South African citizen, you can actually invest through our PTY Limited, which we've had to already create this structure so that our employees can have shares. You own shares in the PTY Limited that are linked to an economic right to the Sun Exchange Incorporated. So this structure has already been set up for our employees. So if you can't invest directly in the Inc., you can invest in the PTY Limited and still have economic rights to the holdco. That is what's going on. So I hope that's put things in the picture. So I just think this evening, just to wrap up, it's actually quite poignant that we're talking about this because today is the State of the Nation address. And you can be sure that one of the biggest contentious issues is going to be the unbundling of Eskom. Now, I'm not going to hazard a guess at the disruption this could cause, not just the economy, but in socially. If people start going on strike or they continue to not make decisions on how they're going to build more coal power stations, are going to build nuclear, what they're going to do. No one knows. All we know is that solar can be installed very, very quickly. In the past 10 years, we've built 300 gigawatts of solar panels around the world. That's 300 nuclear power stations worth of solar panels installed in the time Facebook has been around. So think what we can build in the next 10 years. And Sun Exchange is that platform to accelerate that process, and you can all be part of it. So thank you very much. And I'm open to any questions.